All right, Nico, can you say, welcome to another episode of Healthy Births, Happy Babies?
It's a happy episode. Happy babies.
Welcome back to another episode of Healthy Births, Happy Babies. I'm Dr. Jay Warren. I'm the prenatal and pediatric chiropractor here at the Cap Wellness Center. And this podcast is all about helping you have a proactively healthy pregnancy so you can have a safe, gentle, natural birth. And that's going to allow you to bring your baby into the world that much more gently and healthily so you can start off your family experience more powerfully than if it's full of stress and trauma and other health concerns. So if you are a fan of this show and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Wherever you listen to your podcast, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an upcoming episode. And also, if you haven't rated or reviewed the podcast and you've enjoyed it and gotten value of it, that will really help me out because that'll allow this podcast to reach more and more parents like yourself that might be missing out on this type of information and helping them along their parenting journey. So thank you in advance for that. And thank you if you already have rated and reviewed. All right, now it's time to talk about the Good Dad Project. Larry Hagner is our guest. He's the founder of the Good Dad Project and the Good Dad Project podcast. And I'm really excited he's here. I've been a big fan of Larry's and the work that he has been doing, not only as a podcaster, but for me as a dad this last year after founding his podcast. It's been extremely helpful for me, and I'm just really happy that he said yes to be here to share his wisdom with you about fatherhood. And his podcast is all about, how we can be better dads to our kids, how we can be better men to our mates, just better people in general. He has information about finances and fitness and nutrition, as well as communication with your spouse and enjoying your kids and being present and a great role model for them. So I'm really happy to have him here. As you'll be able to see very quickly, he's just a really easygoing, genuinely heart-centered guy that really cares about making a difference in the world. So I'm really happy to have this conversation and to share it with you. So let's take a quick message from our sponsor, the Cap Wellness Center, and then we'll get right back to it.
Hi, I'm Amanda, the Director of Yoga at Cap Wellness Center in Encinitas, California. Prenatal yoga is beneficial to women on so many levels and so many ways. A few of my favorites are that it helps reduce stress, to calm our mind and slow our breath down. It gives us a chance to connect with our babies, and it helps to build some strength and stamina that we're going to need for the labor and birth of our children. We have amazing teachers here at the center, styles ranging from prenatal vinyasa to gentle, deep stretching classes, and we even have a meditation class to give you a chance to really calm your mind and connect with your baby on a deeper level. I'm wishing you all healthy births and happy babies. Namaste.
All right. Larry Hagner is an author, speaker, coach, podcaster, and the founder of the Good Dad Project. The Good Dad Project is dedicated to helping men become the best version of themselves so they can show up big for their kids. Larry grew up in a fatherless environment for most of his life, and when he became a father himself 11 years ago, he had no idea what to do. All he knew is that he didn't want to fail. He dove into self-improvement, he worked with coaches and mentors, and created the Good Dad Project to help other men with their struggles. Larry is also the author of the Amazon #1 best-selling book, The Dad's Edge: 9 Simple Ways to Have Unlimited Patience, Improve Relationships, and Positive Lasting Memories. And his podcast, The Good Dad Project, has been featured as one of the top podcasts on iTunes in the family section. And it's one of my favorites as well. So let's switch on over to my conversation with Larry now. All right, Larry, welcome to the podcast.
What's going on, Dr. J? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great today. I'm really excited to talk to you. I've been excited about it ever since we scheduled. I've been a big fan of your podcast, and I recommend it all the time to dads here. And so I'm really glad that we can connect and then have you share more about what you're doing to help more dads out there.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm honored to be here. And I got to tell you, after seeing your name, Dr. J, I was automatically thinking like, basketball. I was like, oh, what do we? No, but I'm just kidding. But that was the first.
We have
thing
the same
that came across my
hairdo.
mind. Right. Yeah, you do. Totally do.
Right. Yeah. So no, a different profession altogether.
Yes, by far, right.
Right. Well, so your podcast has been around for how long did you start it ago?
2 years.
2
a little
years?
bit over 2 years ago, yeah.
It's the Good Dad Project. It's something I've been listening myself as a dad, getting great support. And I want you to talk about that. But in general, like, how did you even concept this? Like, what inspired you to start the Good Dad Project podcast?
So that was, I got started with it because it was just such a struggle on my own. So it really came from my own struggle of how to be a father. So, I think it was Gandhi that said, create the change that you want to see. And I don't know, I was constantly going online and trying to figure out, what resources were out there, and they were just minuscule. So I decided to just really create one and never call myself an expert or anything, but really just allow myself to go on more of a public platform journey of learning. And that's really what the podcast has been. Is just a public platform of me learning, because I get to talk to people every week that are a heck of a lot smarter than me. And, I just simply get to share that stuff. So every week, I get the opportunity to learn from somebody. And these guests, man, have just been so cool. Some of them, Navy SEALs and professional athletes, UFC fighters and New York Times bestselling authors. I mean, these people that I would have never thought 2 years ago that I would be on, a Skype call with, Mark Devine, who was a Navy SEAL, or Frankie Edgar, who's a UFC fighter, I'm just like, and I'm floored at how open that these guys, all I do is I ask them if they want to come on and talk about fatherhood. And it's never a question. The only no that I've ever gotten from any guest has been Seth Godin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I heard he told me it's because he doesn't like to publicly talk about his family. So,
okay.
But he was responsive, at least, I guess. Right.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, and was it the Good Dad Project? Was the podcast the first thing that came about, or did you have other things as well?
Not at all, actually. In 2000, I mean, this goes all the way back to 2012. I had a Facebook page, just a page, not a group or anything like that, just a page. And I was like, and I developed that page at probably one of the lowest points of my fatherhood journey. And so in 2012, I was like, I'll just create this page, and if anybody follows it, they follow it, and if not, they don't. So I just decided, I was like, I'm just going to try to be a better man, better husband, and better father. I'm just going to go out every day and try to search for information and do just that. And I'll just share it here, and see what happens. And after about a year of that, people within that first year, people started asking me to speak. I wrote like a little ebook. And then I started a blog in 2013. And then it was 2015, I decided to go with the podcast and then launched my first book. So it's been in the works, I guess, for 5 years, since 2012.
Right. And so your kids were how old at that time when you started it up?
Yeah, so I had a 4-year-old and I had a 6-year-old. And I only had 2 at the time, not 4.
Okay. Right. And so you have, and so where are they at now age-wise?
I don't remember because there's so many of them.
Do you remember their names?
Yeah. My oldest is 11. I have a 9-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
And a 1-year-old. That is a full house.
It's more than full.
Causing you to get out sometimes, right? Just to clear the space.
Well, the funny thing is that I just wait for the reaction now, it's always kind of funny. I just always wait for, like, when people say, how many kids do you have? And when I say 4, I can usually say, wow, before they can. It's a very different response than when I had 2 kids. And, I even had one guy say, why would you do that to yourself? So, no kidding around. Like, some people have no filter whatsoever.
Right. Well, so back then at 2012, like what was going on that you were feeling so low that you reached out for support?
I think I was the typical guy, and now that I understand what the typical man, the husband, goes through, I was definitely one of them, and still am one of them to some degree. I just have more support now.
Yeah.
and more of a tribe of guys who share with the same things. I was trying to be everything to everyone, and I was trying to do everything, and I wasn't very good at being a father because, I mean, let's face it, you go to college for 4 years to earn a degree in something. That's 4 years of training. Anytime you take on a new job, you go through weeks and weeks of training, sometimes a year, or more of training just to get to the level you want to get to with your job. But when it came to fatherhood, I think it's kind of a joke. It's the most important job there is. However, there's no resources for it. I mean, there are, but man, you got to dig, you got to look, and it's trial by error. And the job to me really reminded me of going to work every day and not knowing what the hell I was going to do. So it just became very frustrating, and I had very little patience. I did what most guys do. I sunk myself into the areas of my life where I sought validation and confidence, which was in my hobbies, which I was big into martial arts back then. I sought it in my job because I was doing really well in my career. So like I went and did that stuff because that stuff made me feel good, right? And then I come home and unfortunately my family got the crap that was left over. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to flip that a little bit and give men more resources and give them a place where they can go talk about this stuff.
Right. And you have like a huge group. I mean, the Good Dad or the Dad's Edge Facebook community, it's a closed group. There's thousands of dads in there. And I have to say, it's a really reactive or responsive group that is very impressive because, there's other things out there as far as resources, but I consistently looking through the stream, like a dad posts a question or getting some feedback, and there are dozens and dozens of responses right away. It's amazing. And I have to say, like, it's really high quality advice. It's very supportive. It's never always the same thing because all dads are different. But is that something that you have, I don't want to say like creative, well, yes, you've supported. Do you have like guidelines for that? Or is that just the crew that you create or attract?
I think that's a good question. I think it's a little of both. I try to look at, the Good Dad Project. I look at it as like the mothership of what encompasses, but the Dad Edge is more the brand. And when it comes to men and being a part of something that they feel very good about, believe it or not, marketing is key. And what I mean by that is most men can say, yeah, the Good Dad Project's kind of cool, but it also kind of gives that feeling of, oh, it's sappy. We're talking about our feelings. It's sensitive. It's kumbaya. It's not. But that's maybe what it sounds like. Now, the Dad's Edge, that sounds different. All right. It sounds like, hey, I'm going to go to this group and I'm not going to know all the answers, but that's okay. And I'm going to dig in. People are going to give me advice. And plus, the other thing, too, is men love to teach. So the cool thing about men loving to teach is that when there's a question posed, I think the cool thing is we've given men this opportunity to be like, hey, men love to problem solve. Men love to teach. Help this guy out. And by the way, the guys who read and the guys who kind of are more lurkers on the page still get a lot of value because they get to read all those comments, and hear all those different perspectives. I mean, think about it. To this day, we've never had a platform like that for dads, where they can literally go in and ask any question they want out of thousands of men across the nation or the globe. The funny thing that it fascinates me is the bravery that comes out. If you put a screen and a keyboard in front of a man, he'll ask just about anything to a group of strangers, but we won't ask these questions of our best friends. So, as far as like the quality and the integrity, the men in there treat each other with tremendous respect. I think that's always been the guidelines. When you're here, be engaged, treat others well, treat others with respect. If you don't, you're out. There hasn't been a moment that I've hesitated that if I see somebody like, I believe in being direct with some guys. I think some guys need that. But I think if you are disrespectful and just call people names, and I don't think that that's not my brand, and I don't think that there's room for that. There's other groups that you can go do that. So we don't hesitate to kick people out if that's what they're doing. So we'll delete people if they start treating people bad.
Right. And I think obviously like you're actively engaging in it, so you have to go find it, be in there to participate. So that's going to self-select a lot of people that aren't really that interested in being supported as well as being supportive of other people.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, because you kind of have to go work to find it. It's not a public page. You can just go like and follow. So I keep all the links for the Facebook group in my podcast interviews. So you actually have to go to like we just launched episode 126. You have to go to episode 126. You have to go there, check out the show notes. Then you have to go click on the link that's in there, and then you have to request entry. And then I've got a couple other guys that help me admin the page. We actually do go through the profiles of the people, and if anything looks really squirrely, because there are usually about 10% of the people who request in don't have any business being in there. They're either spammers or their account doesn't look legit, or they're not even a father. Sometimes they're teenagers, sometimes they're women, so we don't allow them in.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we don't just hit approve all, because that would be easy.
Right.
And even the way we introduce guys, I mean, so me and the admins, we try to make it that even personal. So once we've approved the men that are in there that are legit, we will then welcome them 50 at a time, and we tag every single one of them. Welcome him. And then we ask them, why are you here? What are you looking to get out of it? What are your strengths? Tell us about your family. Men will post pictures and everything. It's pretty cool.
Right. And I know that with most of the people listening to my podcast, they're either guys that are getting ready to be a dad because mom's still pregnant, or brand new dads. And what would you say? I mean, obviously you've had experience 4 times now as a new dad again. And in your community, what are the major challenges you're seeing these new dads come up with when their baby comes into the world?
Oh boy, I really don't know if the challenges have changed. I mean, especially if you're talking about new dads solely and completely, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, especially in the dad's edge, like I remember everyone around me when I was getting ready to have my first, I was terrified. Like everyone, oh, you must be so excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm terrified at the same time. I'm excited, but I have no idea what the hell I'm about to do.
Yeah.
And that's the dad's edge is kind of a cool place to go ask those questions. But I would say those challenges are still the same. I think a lot of men are excited to be a father, but they're like, dude, my life's about to change. Like, what's my relationship going to look like with my wife? Are we ever going to have sex again? Are we ever going to sleep again? Are we ever going to go out again? Are we going to lose all of our friends? Like this life altering stuff. And those things, they do change a little bit, right? Yeah. But as long as you're willing to change with it, I think you're going to be okay. But I think the more you fight to be like, my life will be the same right now as it is after children, I think that's where you run into problems.
Right. Yeah, that expectation of either everything's going out the door and you're freaked out because like you're never going to have sex again, you're never going out again.
Right.
Or the opposite side of like, well, yeah, just a month or so and then we're right back at it, right? Those mismatched are so stressful. And I think that's something that the more we can educate dads about, right? We can't tell them exactly what their experience is going to be, right? But the common experience is to know, okay, this is what's normal, this is what isn't normal, and we've all gone through it. We're not alone. And I think that's a huge thing that helped me because I was kind of one of the last guys on the block of my circle of friends to have kids. So it was that same kind of thing of like, oh man, it's going to change. It's the best thing ever. And it's the worst thing ever, or like stressful, all those kind of things. But you don't know it until you're in it. And then I could ask the right questions because I didn't know what to ask.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think most men don't, they don't know the questions to ask. I mean, it's before they're becoming a new dad. I mean, they're pumped up with all kinds of different crazy emotions, right? That are it's very scary, and it brings about uncertainty. And when you're not certain, you're not confident. When you're not confident, you don't feel like you got a handle on things. So where do you go find that, right?
Right. And I know one of the biggest challenges I've had as a dad is the like back and forth of like taking care of myself first, so that I can be full up for my family, and what I've tended to do a number of times also is the exact opposite of like, all right, my needs are out the door. I'm not working out. I'm not eating well because I just got to handle what's on my plate right now. And there's a ton of stuff on the plate all the time. And I think that balance is is so key. What are some tips you might give to some of those new dads or going to be new dads in order to anchor that in and hopefully keep that in place better?
I think for sure, number one is taking care of yourself, like you said. I think that is key. I think that's the most important, and it's counterintuitive, right? A lot of guys don't believe that that's what they should be doing. The other thing too is if you're about to become a dad is never stop dating your wife, because that becomes, the focus becomes the child, which is all good and great and everything. But I think you need to focus on you're married first, you're a parent second. I truly believe that. The marriage is going to be one of the most important relationships we have. Whether the marriage lasts or not, it's going to be one of the most important relationships that we have. So never stop dating our wives. Never forget that we're married first and we're parents second. Take care of ourselves, and also make sure you give your wife the time and the permission to go take care of herself. Like, get her out. Right. Get her out with her girls. Let her recharge. She's going to come back a better woman for you, if she gets out and recharges. And the same with us. If our women don't allow us to go out, and have our guy time, that hurts us as well.
Right. I know I got kicked out of the house a number of times to go surfing because that is something that's always like recharged me, but especially in the first months, like I didn't do that at all. And Effie would say to me, like, you know what, you need to get out, like go away, almost like getting a timeout, right? Like go do it. And you're right. I'd come back like feeling more energized, more like myself. And so that I could give that much more. And I know like in the space that I'm in as far as like this podcast and dealing with pregnant women and postpartum women, that self-care in the last year has become more and more prevalent. There's a lot out there to support women to do self-care, but there's not a lot for dads. And it's almost like with that guilt of even asking for self-care or, just being ashamed of, asking for your own time. And I know that comes up a lot in the group. Is there something, I know you're not a relationship expert at all, but what have you seen communication wise, like with family being able to create that space and broach that subject if a guy's feeling uncomfortable about it?
So for a man to go take care of himself?
Yeah. And to even ask for that, I need that.
It's a good question. Actually, this was just brought up. A guy in our Dad Edge Alliance, which is our membership, there was a guy, I'll just use first names. His name's Patrick. He brought up the question of, hey, I really need to get out, but I feel guilty. Like I feel like I have to justify it to my wife. Like, how do I, what if she tells me like no, and so what I like to do with my wife, like for instance, my wife and I have known each other for 21 years, but we've been married for 14 years. But one thing I say what we do well is we're very, very aware of each other, and we're very aware of the other person getting burnt out, and we're very aware to have that person's back when that happens. So, like for instance, I'm going out this week. I went out this past weekend as well with a friend of mine on Friday night. A friend of mine from college. I'm going out again on Wednesday because Todd Stottlemyre, he was a guest on my show. He's coming to St. Louis and he's doing a book signing. So me and a bunch of the guys from the Dad Edge are going to go out and hang out with him. And I knew that I was going to be gone 2 nights within 7 days. So actually within like 5 days. So I got proactive with it and I was like, hey, look, I'm going on Friday night. I'm going on Wednesday night. You need to get out of this house, this weekend. What do you want to do? So I called a massage place. I booked her a massage. It's kind of funny. She has so much guilt. She canceled it, but she was like, that's too much. But she's like, but I will take you up on, like, I really would like to go work out with my girlfriends on Saturday morning. And then after that, I want to go get a pedicure with them. I'm like, done, do it. I'll get up with the kids. You get out of the house, you go do your thing, go have coffee afterwards, go hang out and do your thing. And so she'll come back a better woman for me and our family, because when she gets fried, man, it does the family no good. And when I get fried, it does the family no good. So yeah, we have each other's back that way. And I would say, to answer your question, I know I was long-winded, but I would say, to answer your question, be proactive. Like, just be proactive. If you know you want to go out and do something, or you have plans, or you're going to be out of town for work or something like that, make sure you pick up the phone. I've even done the thing too where I'll call my wife's friends and be like, look, can you ask her to go out like this weekend?
That's a good idea.
Well, the thing is that it's not to get my wife out because it's like, oh, you're being a pain, you need to get out. It's because I can tell she's getting burnt out. But a lot of women have the same guilt that men do, and they don't want to admit I need a break, right? They'll just keep going and just keep frying themselves like men will. But sometimes you'd be like, no, you need to go, you know? And so, yeah, sometimes it even takes me picking up the phone and calling their friends and be like, hey, can you guys go out on Saturday night, do your girly things, and, let me home with these 4 maniacs so she can get out, get a break.
Right. And make sure they're all still alive when she gets back.
That's right.
Right. Well, so going back to with your first kiddo and then the second kiddo coming around, how did that kind of switching into your relationship with your kids there? How did that change the relationship with your older? And how did you consciously go into how am I going to navigate this, or was it something that after the fact you wish you would have done something different? Because we have a lot of listeners that second time around, they're the new kids coming in, and now they know, okay, yes, that postpartum period is going to be really challenging, but now we got another kiddo. Do you have any recommendations around that?
That's a good question. I honestly don't even remember. I remember having those feelings of wow, we're about ready to have a second. What's that going to do to our family dynamics? How because at the time, my oldest was having some issues too. So he was almost 2, but he wasn't walking or crawling yet. So we found out early on that he needed some intervention, some help. He's fine now. He's great. But he was a little behind. So I was like, man, this is going to be pretty big adjustment. We've got therapists coming in, working with the one, and got a second one on the way. And if I remember right, I think my wife did have some postpartum depression after our second one. And, it was really, and to add fuel to the fire, my wife almost died with our second one. She ended up in the cardiac ICU for 7 days after having my second. So I had to take my second one home. She was in the CV ICU for 7 days. It was really crazy. I mean, it was kind of scary. So it was sort of a crash course, But I remember, I don't know, my second one was pretty easy though too. He was a pretty easy baby.
Okay.
And
did you find yourself bonding more with the first because you were with him more because mom's with the newborn more?
I think so. And as even our relationship has evolved, as my wife and I now, when we divide and conquer, which is pretty darn often, I always take the older ones and she takes the younger ones.
Yeah.
Because the 11-year-old, the 9-year-old, they always want to do active stuff. They want to play. They want to do things. So I'm usually the one doing that. And plus, I've been coaching their teams for the past several years. So I'm always off at practice or doing something with them. But I think I can tell you this. One thing I do regret, and maybe your listeners will get something out of this, I didn't take that time to really enjoy my second one because I was so focused on trying to control all the moving pieces of now a family of 4 that even, my second son, him being an infant just is a blur to me. I don't remember it. But they were only 20 months apart. So maybe that had something to do with it. But yeah, I mean, I would say for men, soak it in. Make sure you give yourself time to be with that little one. Have your wife, also be with the older one. Because I think we divided and conquered probably a higher percentage of me taking care of the older one more.
Right. Yeah, I know that a lot of the dads that I'm working with that they feel stressed about it. All right, I'm in charge of the older, but that's been a great opportunity for the older and the dad to really bond in a whole new way. But again, it brings up a lot of oh wow, I'm in charge, and needing to figure it out in a whole new way. So in our closing minutes here, Larry, we talked a lot about the Facebook group, and your podcast, and I'll have all those links in our show notes. But I really want you to talk about your alliance, because I think that's something that's even more up level than just being in the group, the Facebook group, or even the podcast. Tell the dads listening about the alliance and what that offers.
Yeah, so the Alliance is 8 months old, and I'll never forget when I started it. It was just it was in January of this year, and for a long time I actually kept it quiet because we were really selective about who we wanted to be a part of that, because we wanted that outlier, that man that was really hungry, really hungry to live life a little bit differently, and be open to learn. And so I think it was probably April that I started actually promoting it on the podcast. And now, I remember our first 10 who joined, and now we're up to 122.
All right.
So we have,
congratulations.
we have a lot of guys in there, which is great. And what we do is it's not just, so it's another Facebook group. It's the Dad Edge Alliance Mastermind community. And what I've done is to serve those 122 men. They're all a part of different groups. Right now we have 8 different teams that are a part of that group. So we divide those men up judging by what they want and their schedules and that kind of thing. So we have like a Friday morning team. We have a Monday morning, 2 Monday morning teams, Tuesday evening, Wednesday evening, 2 Thursday afternoon, Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon team, and actually 2 on Friday. I misspoke. So we have literally 1 to 2 teams that are going every single day. So what we do in those teams is every month we are hosting live virtual calls via Zoom. So Zoom is a platform just like Skype, except for its group calls. You can have up to, you can have hundreds on, I think, if you want. But usually we have in each team, we have about 15 to 20, give or take. And what we do is we talk live in those teams, and we're normally picking a subject for the entire month. And then I break those subjects into 4s. So like, for instance, the month of July was really cool. We picked a topic called No More Mr. Nice Guy, which is a book written by Dr. Robert Glover. Mm-hmm. And the whole book is about not necessarily not being a nice guy anymore, but being that guy who takes on so much and doesn't communicate his needs, and we become passive aggressive and burnt out and fried and try to serve everyone from an empty cup. That's literally what the whole book is about. And the book is about becoming this guy who's the too nice a guy who takes on too many things, to what's called the integrated man, which is more confident, self-assured, more of a leader, and they're very good at communicating what they need, and they'll ask for help when they need it. So we broke that into 4s. All the teams took the guy, because I can't be on every single call, so I have several team leads that work for me, and we talk about these subjects. So the guys aren't required to read the book. I usually read all the books, and then I break up the content. But the other cool thing that we do is I have 1 to 2 elite guest speakers for the Alliance every single month. So like for that month, I actually brought on the author,
right.
Dr. Robert Glover. He came and did an hour and 15-minute interactive. He told his story for 15 minutes, but then he did a Q&A, where these guys could talk, really ask him questions live. So guys get tremendous value out of that. And then, so we do, like I said, team calls. We have a private Facebook group, and then we have elite guest speakers every month. We also have community calls that I host usually once a week, and that's various different topics, leadership, confidence, being a better man, being a better husband, relationships, finances, you name it, we're talking about it. And then the last thing I'll say is we have a membership site. And in that membership site, what it houses is, it's very simple. What I found out working with men is you have to keep things simple. The men can go into this membership site once they join, and they can we're lucky we have probably 13 or 14 authors in the Alliance. So we have about 14 books in there that guys can just download to their electronic device and read. They've donated their books. I've got a video resource library in there as well. So 3 to 5 minutes, kind of like Thursday Throwdown, but it's just for the Alliance, just for those guys. And then the other thing they do is any guest speaker or community call that we ever have had goes into a section called recorded guest speakers. So you can go in there and see Dr. Robert Glover or Todd Stottlemyre or the Navy SEALs who have come and talked to us on leadership. You can actually download all those things and listen to them like a podcast. It's been awesome. We have probably, I would say, at least 3 guys a week who will join. And I'm proud to say our turnover rate is super, super low, which tells me that we're doing a good job. I actually just sent out feedback forms of, hey, can't be better unless I know what's going on. And there was all kinds of positive feedback. I literally set these questions up for these guys to be critical with me, so I knew what to give them. And, there was very little to change. We're going to tweak a few things, but it looks like the guys are really pleased with what's going on.
Right. Well, it sounds like they're being really well supported, and I think that's what these dads need. As I was saying at the top of the show, like the dads that I'm seeing here in the office, I mean, the majority of the patients I see are the babies or the mamas, and I know the dads are suffering out there. They're alone. They're needing support themselves. And like I said before, like your community, I think is a tremendous support. It's been really valuable for me. So I want to thank you for that personally. Okay. And so for our listeners, like if it's moms listening to this, like make sure the dads listen to this episode and then head on over to Larry's podcast. I'll have the links all there in the show notes. And just know that there's support out for you dads as well. It's not just for the moms, and you need it. And you're going to be a better parent. You're going to be a better husband. Your kids will thank you, and your wife will certainly thank you. In our closing moments, like what's a major take-home message you'd like our listeners to take from what we talked about today?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think you really said it, which was ask for help. We had our third biggest, most downloaded was when I interviewed a Navy SEAL by the name of Chris Sinog. Chris Sinog is one of the best Navy SEAL snipers that's ever lived. He actually trained Chris Kyle, who the movie American Sniper was based on. And when I had Chris on, I mean, he's like a force to be reckoned with, right? And he just couldn't have been more of a humble man. And he said he lives his life by the acronym TEAMS. And so I got really curious. He kept saying it over and over in the podcast. He's like, it's all about teams. It's all about teams. And I finally asked him, I was like, what is TEAMS? And he's like, well, it's an acronym that I live by and the SEALs live by. I was like, well, take me through that. What is that? And he said, well, T is take responsibility. The E is encourage others. And the A, I thought, to be honest with you, and I'll say it and then I'll come back to it. The A is ask for help. The M is master your job, and S is sacrifice. And of course, in my mind, the biggest one that stood out by this big bad Navy SEAL and how he lives his life is ask for help. I thought you guys could conquer the world on your own, And he's like, so he dove into that. He's like, nothing is further from the truth. There's no greater myth out there than men should try to take on things without help. He's like, the only reason that the SEALs are so successful is because we are strong within the team and we don't hesitate to ask for help when we need it. So the guy who's got my 6, if I can't handle something, I'm going to ask. That's how I'm successful. That's how our team is successful. Me thinking that I can go at it alone, that's my ego talking. And I need to, if I want to be successful, I got to sidestep that, ask for help. He's like, even now, he's like, he's got an online business. He's got, thriving. He's got a book out there. He's like, when I need help with my business, I go find a coach. Like, I need help. And he's like, the same thing with men. There's no reason for men to live this quiet life of desperation when all you have to do is ask for help. So give yourself, and that came from one of the most elite Navy SEAL snipers on the planet, to ask for help. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, so it really is okay to ask for help. It's not only okay, but it's pretty cool to do that, because that's what these guys are doing. Right. So that's what I would say the big takeaway is, ask for help. Yeah, and that's definitely a big challenge for me as well. Like, well, if the Navy SEAL can do it, I guess I can do it too, right? Exactly. Good. Yeah. And I always like to close the interviews with what pearl of wisdom would you like to listen to a little baby that might be listening to either mom or with dad listening to this somewhere in the background? What little advice or encouragement or message would you like to whisper to them? The advice I would love to give that child is be patient with your parents, because they're learning this journey along with you. So they're learning how to be a parent just as much as you're learning to be a human being, a child, and a young person. So they're learning as they go too. Great. Well, Larry, again, thank you for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you for coming and sharing it, so our listeners can get involved in your community as well. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. It was an honor. Hi, it's Dr. J again, and I want to thank you so much for listening to the podcast. It's something I really enjoy doing, and I, as a parent, learn a ton from these experts coming on and sharing their wisdom, so I hope you're getting a lot out of it too. And I want to share something else with you. I've created a guide called the 40 Ways to Connect with Your Baby During Pregnancy. It's full of simple things you can do on a day-to-day basis that will help strengthen that bond that you have with your baby. It's a free download. You can go to my website at drjwarren.com/40ways and just enter your email. I'll send it right to you. You can download it and start working on it right away.
all of the research that I'm learning in the fields of epigenetics and attachment parenting is showing that the more bonded you are during your pregnancy with your baby, the better the birth is going to go and the better parenting is going to go, because you have that strong foundation, a strong connection to build upon. So go again to my website. It's drjwarren.com/40 ways and get that free guide. And again, thanks for listening.